Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for our first hymn. Infinite Spirit, Divine Heavenly Father, Mother God, we call upon all great teachers of light and love, all the great masters. We ask a special blessing over each and every one who is gathered here today to hear the words and wisdom of our pastor. We give thanks for those who have appeared, and we ask a special blessing over this temple, this church, as it goes forth, spreading love, joy, peace, and happiness. Amen. At this time, we'll have a reading by our pastor. Please welcome Reverend Steve.
Thank you for coming here today. It's a wonderful summer day. A friend of mine's been going through a lot of difficulty this week, and I managed to talk to him this morning, and he may come in today. He's a very interesting guy, always helping people, always kind with people, but still got to go through the events of life. And I had pretty much the same kind of week myself last week. It was one of the more difficult weeks of my life. I almost got fired and divorced in the same week. So it was quite a struggle. It was quite a struggle, and I guess it's okay to get knocked to your knees, as the boxing profession says, but as long as you stand back up again. Life does that to you sometimes, and you just have to stick with your principles, stick with your beliefs, and weather whatever comes your way. People tend to take advantage of your goodwill. They tend to take advantage of your kindness. And I remember one time somebody said to me, this guy I had loaned him a truck and a trailer while he was trying to start his business, and he was always trying to employ these people that were out of halfway houses recovering from drug use and stuff. And one of them, he gave him a couple $100 for materials, and he called me up a day later. He says, I gave him a couple $100 for materials yesterday, and I haven't seen your truck, trailer, or the $200 since. And he said, I'm so sorry. And I said, let me explain something. He said, I shouldn't be that kind of a person. I said, first off, the world doesn't have enough kind people in it. So you should never feel bad about being kind or feel you shouldn't be kind. And second off, if our friendship can't withstand a $1,000 truck and a $500 trailer being missing during it, then we don't have no friendship. So you have to kind of meet these things head on. Be true to yourself. Don't let the world change you, because the world's always going to be the world. Just because you choose to be a spiritual person doesn't mean the world's going to change at all. Your perception of things is going to change. The way you deal with things is going to change. But the world's still going to be the world, and people are still going to be people. So don't be insulted or frustrated that people still be people. Thank you.
Our service is composed of 3 parts: the healing portion, the inspirational lecture, and the demonstration of spiritual gifts. You'll please turn to the back of your yellow sheet. We'll repeat the healing prayer as our healers take their places. Marty and Ashkin. And please repeat after me. I ask the great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from my mind and body and to restore me to perfect health. I ask this in all sincerity and honesty, and I will do my part. I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help, and to restore them to perfect health. I put my trust in the love and the power of God. And as you hear this sound, this will tell you that the healing stools are open. Please find a very comfortable position. Close your eyes. Place your feet flat on the floor. Take 2 or 3 deep breaths. And as we begin, I would like you to picture in your mind's eye a beautiful red light energy flowing over the floor. And as it flows over the floor, flows up over your feet, the calves of your legs, your knees, your thighs, and your hips. And as you take a deep breath, it moves up into the abdominal area, the chest, the arms, and the head. And you're totally filled with this red light energy. Breathing in positive red light energy and releasing anything that is of a negative vibration. In and out. The color now changes, flowing over the floor to a beautiful orange light energy. And orange light energy flows over the floor, it rises up through your feet, the calves of your legs, your knees, your thighs, and your hips. And as you take a deep breath, it moves up into your abdominal area, your chest, your arms, and your head. And you breathe in and out this life-giving force, this orange light energy, breathing it in and out. Now the energy changes to a beautiful yellow. The yellow light energy flows over the floor, goes up over your feet, the calves of your legs, your knees, your thighs, and your hips. As you take a deep breath, it moves up into the abdominal area, the chest, the arms, and the head. This is the seat of the emotions. As it goes up, breathing in positive yellow light energy and releasing anything that's negative. And as you breathe in and breathe out, all the colors know where to flow into, what areas they need to go to bring about a proper balance. As we invoke a beautiful green light energy, and green light energy flows into the room, flowing over the floor, rising up over your feet, the calves of your legs, your knees, your thighs, and your hips. And as you take a deep breath, it moves up into the abdominal area, the chest, the arms, and the head, opening up your heart center for unconditional love. Allowing this love light energy to flow out to wherever it's needed. To all those places where there's war or strife, wherever there's disasters. Seeing all those souls making their transitions. Now the color changes to a beautiful lavender. This is the gateway between lower self and higher self. And as the lavender light energy flows over the floor, flowing up over your feet, the calves of your legs, your knees, your thighs, and your head. working on your throat center, the thyroid, the parathyroids, and the thymus. Now as we invoke a beautiful indigo light, the indigo light flows over the floor, going over your feet, rising up over your feet, all the way up to the top of your head. And as you breathe in and out this indigo light, it activates your pituitary gland and your pineal gland, opening up your third eye. Now as we invoke a beautiful ultraviolet light, and the ultraviolet light flows into the room, the ultraviolet light removes all negative vibrations, all negative thinking. As a beautiful cosmic white light descends down over you, asking that all of your 7 bodies come into alignment. And as this white light flows through you, every cell and every fiber of your being is being rejuvenated. Now as a beautiful golden light comes down over you, the highest spiritual light there is, you become one. And just be in the silence, in the silence, in the silence. Begin to flow back through the colors of the rainbow. Back through the ultraviolet. Back through the indigo. The lavender. The green. Yellow, the orange, and the red. Now picture 2 streams of red light flowing down from your feet, one from each foot into the center of Mother Earth. There's a beautiful golden anchor. Attach these streams of red light to the golden anchor. And as you take a deep breath, pull up Mother Earth's energies up through the bottom of your feet. You feel that energy, and you feel yourselves coming back into your physical bodies. Another deep breath. Feel your toes coming in. Another deep breath. Your hands coming back. Bring your hands together in front of you in a very prayerful position, fingertips to fingertips, palms to palms. Everybody bring their hands together, fingertips to fingertips, palms to palms, up to your heart center. Give a prayer of thanksgiving for this healing energy, this healing light. Place your hands over your eyes and slowly open your eyes and giving thanks and being here now. I'd like to thank our healers this morning. It is with a great deal of pleasure that we introduce our speaker this morning, the Reverend Steve. Steve and I have been friends for a number of years, and we go back a long time. He's a great teacher, a great minister, great friend. And if you ever ask Steve for anything, he's always there. Without further ado, please welcome our pastor, Reverend Steve.
We can get it going. There we go. This thing must be rubbing on something. I'd like to thank everybody again for coming here today and giving me a chance to speak to you. I'd like to start off with reading an inspirational passage. We know God by spiritual vision. We feel that He is beside us. We feel His presence. Contact with God is not made by the senses. Spirit consciousness replaces sight. Since we cannot see God, we have to perceive Him by spiritual perception. God has to span the physical and the spiritual with the gift to us of spiritual vision. Many persons, though they cannot see God, have a clear spiritual consciousness of Him. We are inside a box of space and time, but we know there must be something outside that box, limitless space, eternity of time, and God. My spiritual walk is something that I've consciously been involved in since about 1986. I tried other systems prior to that. I was involved in Kundalini Yoga through Yogi Bhajan. I was involved in martial arts disciplines for a while, which back in the 60s and 70s had a spiritual component to them. It wasn't just the forms. There was a philosophy that went with them also. And today I've chosen to express myself primarily through the religious belief of spiritualism. I'm not advocating any one system over another, just merely stating how I have progressed over the years. With that, I would like to start by reading the Declaration of Principles and their interpretation out of the Spiritualist Manual. I think it's important to have some text that you read, not that you memorize it, as we were taught earlier in our life with different religious systems, but because the sounds resonate to us. They awaken our consciousness when we hear the words. And again, it's not so much memorizing them as the stimulation they produce when you hear them, when you connect to them. And these principles are not commandments. They are suggested ways of living. They are things that have been truths that have been proven over the years to different people. Each person takes them as they understand them, where they meet them at. So again, this isn't a commandment. This isn't an inflexible principle. It's an observation and a statement of that observation. Number one, we believe in infinite intelligence. By this, we express our belief in a supreme and personal power, everywhere present, manifesting as life through all forms of organized matter, called by some God, by others spirit, and by spiritualists infinite intelligence. Number two, we believe that the phenomenon of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expression of infinite intelligence. Number two, in this manner we express our belief in the immanence of spirit, and that all forms of life are manifest of spirit or infinite intelligence, and thus all men are children of God. Number three, we affirm that a correct understanding of such expression and living in accordance therewith constitute true religion. A correct understanding of the laws of nature on the physical and spiritual planes of life and living in accordance with them will unfold the highest aspirations and attributes of the soul, which is the correct function of a true religion. Number four, we affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continue after the change called death. Life and life hereafter is all one life whose continued continuity of consciousness is unbroken by the mere change in form by the process we call death. 5, we affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven by the phenomenon of spiritualism. Spirit communication has been in evidence in all ages of the world and is amply recorded in both sacred and normal texts. Orthodox has accepted these manifestations and has interpreted them in dogma and creed in terms of the supernatural. Spiritualism accepts and recognizes these manifestations and interprets them as normal, natural understandings of natural law. 6, we believe the highest morality is contained in the Golden Rule. Whatsoever ye would that others should do unto you, do ye also unto them. This precept we believe to be true. It points the way to harmony, peace, and happiness. Wherever tried, it has proven successful, and when fully understood and practiced, will bring peace and happiness to man on earth. Number 7, we affirm the moral responsibility of the individual, and that he makes his own happiness or unhappiness as he obeys or disobeys nature's physical and spiritual laws. Man himself is responsible for the welfare of the world in which he lives, for its welfare or its misery, for its happiness or unhappiness, and if he is to obtain heaven upon earth, must learn that heaven for himself and others. Individually, man is responsible for his own spiritual growth and welfare. Sins and wrongdoing must be outgrown and overcome. Virtue, love, and good must take their place. Spiritual growth and advancement must be attained by aspiration and personal striving. Vicarious atonement has no place in the philosophy of spiritualism. Each must carry his own cross to the Calvary's heights in the overcoming of wrongdoing and replacing them with right. 8, we affirm that the doorway to reformation is never closed against any human soul here or hereafter. We discard entirely the terribly wrong and illogical teachings of eternal damnation, and in place, therefore, we accept and present of consideration of thinking the thought of the continuity of life beyond the change called death. A natural life where the opportunity for growth and progress to better and higher moral spiritual conditions are open to all, and they are here on earth and in the heavenly planes of life. 9, we affirm the precepts of prophecy and healing contained in the Bible are divine attributes proven through mediumship. We must thus affirm our belief in the acceptance and truths which are contained in the Bible and assert that the prophecy and mediumship are not unique nor recent occurrences alone, but they are universal and everlasting and have been witnessed and observed with the ages of the world. As I said before, thinking of these things and trying to understand where they fit into your life produces an awakening of your consciousness. It produces thought beyond what your normal mind can handle. Reading these things again and memorizing them is not going to help you. Memorizing them, being able to quote them, reading them and creating that consciousness will. Something that came to me was, we spend a lot of time getting ready to go places in the morning. What we look like, what we're going to wear, how we appear. How much time do we spend on our spiritual being, the condition of our spirit before we walk out the door? If we spend even a quarter of the time that we spent for how we look on the spirit, just taking a moment to read an inspirational passage, taking a moment to think, am I calm? Have I set aside my frustrations from yesterday before I begin today? Just some calm thoughts like that can help the day go much smoother. So I would suggest to you that once you hear all this really interesting knowledge, all this stimulating words from sages of the past, you still got to go out and put it into wisdom. Knowledge has to become wisdom. You have to become able to practice it in the life around you. And it starts as simple as that. Checking yourself before you step out the door mentally, physically, and spiritually. All of this, the whole purpose of every religious existence, all spiritual knowledge, is to produce happiness, hope, and joy in our lives on a daily basis. Some people say it's so we can go to heaven, but it's to produce a calmness and joy in your life. And the way that it does that is that it puts you beyond the thoughts of the physical. It puts you beyond the immediacies of your emotion of the moment. It puts you beyond the instincts of survival of the animal physical body that you exist in. So you have this alternate philosophy to what your body normally wants to do. Somebody pokes you, somebody cuts you off in traffic. What do you want to do? You immediately go to the animal, But if you have a spiritual discipline, it's okay to act like that momentarily as long as you roll back and go, maybe I should just think kinder about that. I remember one time this guy cut me off and almost ran me into the ditch, and it was right before a stoplight. So being the ex-boxer that I was and the manly man that I used to think myself was, I get out and I'm going to go kick this guy's tail. And he gets out and tears are running down his face. And he's a pretty burly guy himself. He's a Marine. He's got a Marine uniform on, and he's crying. And he says, I just got a call. My dad's in the hospital dying, and I'm so sorry. I just have to get there. Well, how do you think I felt about that pig? So there's all kinds of reasons that these things go on that absolutely have nothing at all to do with you in a personal sense. The world doesn't attack you personally. Much of what happens to you doesn't even recognize your existence, and you're sitting there taking it all personally, getting all wound up about it. So I would ask you again to think about these spiritual thoughts, these spiritual principles, and it gives you a relaxation of life. It gives you a bigger view of things that go on. God works in everybody's life all the time. It's just that when you're on a spiritual path of discipline, that you begin to be able to get that. You begin able to hear it more often. It's a constant flow to everybody, everywhere, all the time. One of the principles that I read said that it's the permeating intelligence in all matter, all living life, motivating it forward with God's purpose. All the time. All the time. There's no exception to it. Something I heard as a spiritualist belief, what we believe about all of humanity, It's like a stream flowing down a hill. If you look at that stream, the center part of it is moving very quickly and swiftly back to the source. And if you liken the force of gravity to the force of God, it's irresistible. It cannot be said no to. It can only be temporarily diverted. So in the middle, the people that are practicing their spiritual discipline are moving swiftly, surely, without resistance with the purpose of God. As you move further out, you see water that's moving a little more slowly and getting into the rough areas of the creek. And those are people that are kind of on again, off again. And then you get to the outer edges of the stream where there's eddies that seem to be running in circles and turning back on themselves. But eventually, whatever's in that, water's in that eddy moves back out into the mainstream and back as surely to the source as anything else. Only by appearances, only by comparison does God not seem to be acting in your life. God is as surely there as the force of gravity is there, and cannot be circumvented as surely as the force of gravity. We have the illusion of free choice. God's purpose is this big. What we think is unlimited free choice is about this big. So when we think we have unlimited choice, we're still being moved as surely as the power of God, just like the little eddies turning at the edge of the stream and being moved back out into the force of the stream. So it's our choice if we want to be in the edges, on the side, or in the middle of the stream. But God abandons no one. I said earlier that I had quite a week last week. And without a doubt, there was more animal in me than spirit a lot of the time. But I always had that spirit discipline to step back to when I got unengaged, disengaged from what was in my face. And that spirit discipline, that God's presence was there even when I was engaged in the physical, because it tempered my actions, it tempered my words. The spirit power in your mind will temper your words, because even when you don't think that God is acting in your life, God works through your words. And the more you meditate, and I'm not saying meditate 4 hours so you can live 4 hours, but the more that you think about these things, the more natural they become to your mind. The more second nature they become in your mind. In the beginning of spiritual discipline, I memorized all the rules and regulations, and I tried to adhere to them without exception. Well, that just produces a lot of frustration. But you need to know what the purposes are, what the principles are, so you can gently move towards them. As you move on in your spiritual discipline and move out of the animal instincts, you begin to become kinder to people. You begin to become more accepting of people more of the time. And while it doesn't mean you should allow people into your existence to harm you or mistreat you, it does allow you to stop seeking revenge against them. It stops you from wanting to get even with them. It stops you from re-engaging in a situation that you can let go of and move past. And that's one of the biggest things that's given me the ability to let go of something and not re-engage with it. Once it's gone, it's gone. Don't keep reliving it. Don't keep rethinking it. Let go of it and move away from it. If it's not causing you physical harm, if it's not taking material gain away from you, if it's not going to put you in the grave, then let go of it. I sit on my back porch in the mornings like this morning, and I look out over the pastures and see the horses that I have out in the pasture. I got that little black puppy next to me wanting to be petted. Little birds get brought to the tree in my backyard, and I just relax so much when I see that, because what I'm looking at is harmony. It's God's plan unhindered by human interference. Now, nature has a lot of disruption to it. It has a lot of death, a lot of conflict, and a lot of struggle. But the energy that you feel from observing nature is generally God's plan being unhindered. God's power without interference is what you're feeling and seeing. And that's what you should try to see in your life. Feel God's power within your life, unhindered. It doesn't mean that you have to be led around by the nose without personal decision about things. It just means be aware of it. It's kind of like what your parents told you. Be kind to people, be fair to people. And you remember that at times. When God's energy's like that, it reminds you. It doesn't compel you irresistibly and take away your free will. So be involved, be happy, and be kind whenever you can remember to be kind to people. But you don't have to put yourself at risk to be kind. You don't have to give away your last dollar to be kind. The Bible said if you have two coats, Jesus said if you have two coats, give one away. He didn't say give both of them away and I'll give you another one because you're a nice person. You have to celebrate the blessings that are given to you. You have to honor the blessings that are given to you by the world and by God. Otherwise, you're not going to keep getting blessings. And honoring them means to retain them sometimes. Buy yourself something nice when you get a little extra money rather than giving it to somebody else. Treat yourself to something kind. Don't be responsible one day. Go to the beach and just sit at the ocean. Just shut everything off and go have a day for yourself. If you don't do that a couple times a month, you're going to really get distressed. It's been an interesting ride for me. And I can remember back a time going by when people didn't want to see me, they didn't want to talk to me, they didn't want to have anything to do with me because of the kind of person I was. And I was strictly acting on my animal instincts, and that energy is what drove my life. Now, that doesn't mean God wasn't with me, because even in that state, I could state what I believed and what I didn't believe. And by that discipline, God was able to work with me, show me different ways to believe, and show different ways to be. And that learning still continues today. I'm by no means a product of my own decisions. There was a lot of people along the way that took time to care about me. There were Catholic priests that took time to care about me and visit me when I was incarcerated. My mother and father visited me. My brothers did. Even when I got out and was acting out, they all kept trying to help me. They didn't put themselves at risk, but they kept trying to interpose help. And one day it happened. One day I had a spiritual awakening. I'm by no means perfect today, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. I remember I was involved in this organization, and when you come into this organization, you get what's called a white chip for the first day of sobriety. This one girl came time after time for about 2 years when I was there. Every Saturday she'd come in and get a white chip. Every following Friday she'd go out and hell raise and drink. But every Saturday she'd come back in and get a white chip, meaning to do well. Well, I left that organization, that particular meeting, for about a year and had an occasion to be back there. And I'm coming in the door and she's getting her 1 year chip. That was the day she was getting her 1 year chip. Kept trying, kept intending to do well, and finally it stuck. And that's all you're responsible for is your effort. Too many times we gauge spiritual development like we gauge a certificate on the wall. It's an accomplishment. I am this. Spiritual development is not like that. It's intention. The effort of trying to change is many times what is necessary or the benefit, not the accomplishment of the change. Because as you change spiritually, the goalpost keeps getting moved and moved and moved. So if you're on an honest spiritual progression, you never stop having something to reach for. That's the good news. The bad news is sometimes it gets really frustrating. But that's the way it works. The effort of reaching, not the accomplishment of the reach. So take time and make the effort. Take time to think about God in your spiritual state before you step out the door. The world will get much nicer for you much quicker when you do this. Because you begin to think eternally, not immediately in your face. I thank you all for listening today.